Warning: the following podcast, which contains strong language and mature content, is unsuitable for children or for the faint of heart. The subject matter discussed will be frightening and graphic in nature. Listener discretion is advised.
When you wanna hear about the paranormal, you get the Spooked Girls. True crime that makes you hypothermal. With the three Spooked Girls, stabby snippets will give you dreams. Tara and Jessica will make you along with the Spooked Girls. Bring on the slaughter, we on that haunted ground. Spooked Girls. The three Spooked Girls.
Hey there, Spooksters, and welcome back to another episode here on Three Spooked Girls. My name is Jessica, and as always, I'm joined by my favorite gal pal, Tara.
Hey, Spooksters.
Today we are going to be doing a Homicide Hunter, but we're going to be doing an actual hour and a half documentary Homicide Hunter. It's called Homicide Hunter, Devil in the Mountains. But before we dive in and figure out how Papa Joe solved a murder, if you want to hang out with us on social media, you can do so by heading over to all of the socials and just typing in Three Spooked Girls. We will pop up. Then you will click follow, and then you will be happy forever because we bring all the information that we do here on the pod to you through the socials. So definitely check those out. If you want to interact with a wonderful group of like-minded individuals, please check out our Facebook group. It is Three Spooked Girls Official. We do everything over there. There's thread posts about each episode. There's just people sharing their lives and memes and articles, and people talk about what's going on in the true crime space. I really enjoy it. It's one of the places I go. A lot of times I go to share stuff that I see on Facebook to the group, but that's already in the group.
Mm-hmm.
I was beaten to the punch. But definitely check those out. If you are a bibliophile like Tara and I, you should definitely join our book club. It's the Spookster Literary Society. We meet on the last Sunday of every month for 30 minutes and we just discuss the book we're reading. This month we are reading Hemlock and Silver. So if your New Year's resolution is to read more books, why not read books with us and then discuss them and have people be like, hey, this is what I think of that. And we talk about the book, but we also talk about other books we're reading. And I've gotten a lot of great recommendations out of the book club because people are like, oh, I just read this. And then we talk about them. And I'm like, ooh, that's exciting. I'm going to write that down. And then I go listen or read them. So definitely check them out. I really feel like it is a wonderful little fun time. It's 30 minutes on a Sunday afternoon. So you just kind of pop in and discuss books, which I love. And if you love books, you should join us.
Yeah.
If you want to help support the show, you can head over to patreon.com/Three Spooked Girls or hit the link in the show notes. For as little as $1, you get our back catalog there. We have hundreds of episodes over there, guys. Literally. We've been at this 7.5 years now on the pod, and we've done at least one episode per month for that. But then during the pandemic, we really did do a lot of content. So you should definitely check that out. $5 and up patrons get ad-free episodes the day before. So definitely check that out. And if you're looking for more content from Tara and I, and it doesn't necessarily have to be true crime or paranormal, Tara and I have a second podcast. It's called the Social Seance Society. And yesterday we just launched our new season. We're going to be taking a nostalgic walk down the Hunger Games trilogy and the 2 prequels. So if you love Hunger Games or just love Tara and I and you want to check it out, it's called the Social Seance Society, and you can find it anywhere that you find this podcast. If you're listening to us right now, same platform, you can find us there. Definitely check it out. I'm really excited about it. Tara and I just finished recording it and it made me happy because I love the Hunger Games.
So good. So fun. Our newest obsession.
It is. And just so that you guys know, if you are an OG spookster and you remember when Jessica had weird conspiracy theories, Jessica drops a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, a really good one that I am here for. And I can cut this out, but I'm just like, oh my God, you know what they fucking did? They just, on all the slips of paper in the bowl, it just said Prim's name. And then in the other bowl, it just says PETA.
No, 1,000%, Tara. 1,000%. That's all it said. You can leave those in if you want to.
I'll leave that. That's fine. Spoiler.
but definitely check it out. But today we are going to be discussing the Homicide Hunter, The Devil in the Mountains. If you know me, you know I love a man named Papa Joe Kenda. He is a homicide detective from Colorado Springs, Colorado, with over 400 solved murders under his belt. And that's a lot. That's impressive. Also, people in Colorado Springs, stop murdering one another.
Please. Yeah.
Joe Kenda did not need to be that busy.
No.
So we're going to be talking about the only serial killer case, which to me, like, blew my fucking mind. When he was like, this is the only serial killer I've ever met, and this is the only one I ever worked on, I was like, out of 400, 399 were like non-serial killers. I mean, he had some mass killers in there, or spree killers, but like, is the only serial killer?
Mm-hmm.
At least that he knew of. He might have had other ones. He just didn't know.
Only confirmed one.
Is only confirmed, yeah. Papa Joe does a quote at the beginning of every episode that he does, and this is the one for this documentary, which is, when you're a serial killer, the thrill for you is the kill. I'm going to also make a note right here. If you've listened to the podcast for a minute, you may hear the first story I'm about to tell you and be like, that sounds familiar. We have done the first victim's case before on a Papa Joe episode, but this is going into detail about the serial killings and how they caught him, because in the other episode, in just the regular Homicide Hunter, they didn't go into detail.
Right.
It was just like, they found him.
They found him, but don't worry, it gets so much worse.
It's so much worse. So on January 26, 1988, the fire department got a call that there was a fire in an apartment, and it was apartment 104, and they responded. And just like any other fire they go in, they put it out, and then they go in and assess what the damage is. If you've listened to the show, you know that we refer to people affectionately if they've been around for a while. So yes, Uncle Brian will be part of this. And Mama Kathy gets a shout out.
Oh, yeah. Love that.
It's going to make you a little mad at Papa Joe, though.
Oh, no. Damn you, Papa.
A little bit. Damn you, Papa Joe. So Uncle Brian tells us that they want to make sure that they get everyone to safety. And this is an apartment building. Like, you have to think about the fact that there are like multiple homes attached to one another. And also, like, you don't always know who's in an apartment. Like, you could have guests over, someone could not be home. So they really were like, the fire department's first job was to get in there, put out the fire, and make sure everyone gets to safety. And they did that. So we meet a couple of other people who, I'm just going to let you know, I didn't normally how I keep track of what everyone says and who says it. I don't necessarily do that this time. I'm just going to kind of talk about the documentary because there was a lot of people, but I will mention people as they come up in here so that you understand who was there. But I'm not going to be like, and then Anne said, because we've talked about her before, but Anne Irvin, she's a reporter. She's in this one. And then we meet a man by the name of Skip Arms. I had to go back and double check that that was his name because that just sounds like we forgot to do something at the gym one day.
Skip Arms today.
I bet he got that joke a lot.
Oh, I'm sure.
But they're all like in this area of Colorado Springs. And they start talking about, the fire chief starts walking through and they find a body. When they assess the body, the first thing that they have to do as a fire department is to see, is there any indication that this body was not killed by the fire? A ton of stab wounds would give that indication. And unfortunately, this victim had several lacerations, including 4 on his back and many on his front. And so they were like, the death was not by fire, but by a violent attack. So it's 5:30 a.m. and Papa Joe gets a phone call and he gets up to go. The dispatch is like, here's the details. And he goes, hold on. I don't want to know. I want to get there and I want to assess for myself. Like Papa Joe in his like true Papa Joe fashion, because he's a badass. And so he's like, just give me an address. Now Papa Joe starts addressing the camera just about himself for a minute. He goes, in 1988, I had been with the police department for 15 years and I was a supervisor in the homicide division. And there's all these cute pictures of Joe, like when he was in his younger self. Generally, we don't see that. We only see like the actor. By the way, the actor portraying Kenda. And this one is not the same one that we have known for years. And it's probably because he probably aged out.
That was my first thought.
Because this was happening in 2022. This was filmed and processed. So they show photos of Mama Kathy and like kissy happy. And he goes, apparently Mama Kathy and the kids were not happy that he was a homicide detective and they did not like it. And they were very vocal. And Papa Joe states, I ignored them and their unhappiness and they suffered for it.
Damn.
And I was like, Papa Joe?
That's kind of accountability though, if you think about it.
Basically what he says is like, when I took that oath, I really meant it.
Yeah.
I am here to serve. I know that the dynamic people are probably like, but you're kids. But he's also like, but he saved the world from 400 murderers. And probably more, because some of them were like multiple people that committed the murders. But they show so many pictures. And one of the things I thought was really cute is that he's like, even though I know that they were like unhappy, I made sure that every time I left Mama Kathy, which he does not refer to her as Mama Kathy, by the way. He refers to her as Mrs. Kenda. I refer to her as Mama Kathy. He's like, I made sure to say goodbye to her and that I loved her no matter when I was leaving her presence. Because I didn't know if it was like the last time I would be able to do that. And that's very true, because jobs like policemen and firemen, there's a risk to it. If you're chasing a murderer, they've killed someone and they might try to kill you. So he wanted to make sure that he expressed that. So he shows up on the scene and the fire captain's like, come on, Joe, let's go look. And they go in, they look, and the place is destroyed and he's like, it's the worst smell ever. And Uncle Brian tells us that it's arson and that there's multiple points of ignition in this house. And it's all these newspapers that have been like soaked in some sort of accelerant. And that there is newspaper that was on top of the body because they were trying to burn the body. So the body had been also set on fire. We meet someone by the name of Leon Kelly, who is the coroner for El Paso County now, not then, but now. And he said that the face had been sliced and that there had been multiple stab wounds to the back. There was about 4 of them and more on the front side. And that the strikes had come from someone with a right hand, and that someone had pulled out a section of this person's entrails and looked at it. And Papa Joe was like, that didn't happen from being stabbed. Someone was playing with the deceased person's intestines.
Ew. Oh my God.
The victim turns out to be 31-year-old Victor Woods, and he is a bike repair guy. And he is actually like a really good bike repair guy. In fact, he lived in a totally different area of the country, and he was recruited to come to Colorado because of his skills. The body of Victor was covered with newspaper, and then there was blood all over the newspapers. And that blood was on all of the newspapers scattered around the entire apartment, which told Papa Joe that the suspect or the unsub was bleeding onto the papers. Because there's no way that Victor's blood got all over this, right? It's not like the murderer like dipped his blood on the paper, Victor's, but he was honestly bleeding. So what they believe happened is that when you're stabbing someone, and Papa Joe's like, this happens, when you're stabbing someone, blood goes back onto the handle of the knife. And if it's done enough times, the handle gets slick and your hand slides down it. Now, they do find the murder weapon in the apartment. It's a 13-inch blade with like a wood handle. I feel like my parents had this knife. And it showed like basically that he cut himself and there was blood in the bathroom sink showing that he tried to clean up. So they were like, okay, he tried to literally just like, imagine a 13-inch blade and you're stabbing someone and your hand goes down onto it and you slice your hand open and then you try to bandage it back up.
You're not gonna. It's not gonna work.
No. So that's why he was bleeding everywhere.
Yeah.
Papa Joe's like, okay, if he's cut his hand this bad, he needs stitches.
Definitely.
So he goes to try to find all these ERs. Like, he sends a detective. They don't come up with anyone. They start canvassing the neighborhood and they come across a girl who kind of saw something very suspicious happening about the time of the murder, specifically from this man's apartment. There's an 18-year-old girl who was part of the Olympic training committee. She had moved there from Dallas in November. She had lived in the apartment complex since November 2nd of 1987, which was just 2 or 3 months before this. And she was training to be an Olympian, and her specialty was karate and jujitsu or judo. And she often had trouble sleeping. So she got up and she was like stretching, and she realized that she wanted to go get something from the vending machine. So she goes out to the vending machine, which seems like they're depicting it. It's probably like in a laundry facility room, but it's not like in her apartment. She had to like go across the parking lot. And she says while she was out, she heard a muffled argument. And then she like notices it's coming from apartment 104, which is Victor's apartment. And then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, the argument stopped. And then very shortly after, a man ran out of the apartment and got into his loud car that she said had throat, which is apparently a very specific term in car world. I don't know cars, but it means it's really loud. Like, it's got like a muffler has been removed. It's supposed to be really, really loud. Well, Papa Joe is a car guy. So he's like, oh, I know this. This guy is like a hot rodder. And so he's like, okay. Interestingly enough, the apartment for this is about a quarter mile from the I-25. So it's like really close to there, which means that this person, we know he has a car, could be anywhere. because just jumped on the freeway a quarter mile away. Now we're going to go 40 miles south to the town of Pueblo, Colorado. It is directly on I-25 as well. We are going to skip ahead 2 months to March 26, 1988. And a man by the name of Mr. Sykes he's a cowboy and he's out riding his range. He's doing his cowboy thing, right? Like he's doing his thing, minding his own damn business, looking for his lost calf. And he stumbles upon what he doesn't actually know, but kind of looks like a dead body, but he's not sure. So he does the right thing and he calls the police. Now, I get the impression that either Mr. Sykes didn't want to talk with people or that he is since deceased because his friend Lee Morey speaks for him. And he kind of like talks about like how he was that day. And like, that's how we know that the calf was missing and things like that. And he says that he called the police and that a police officer by the name of Roger Gomez, he shows up. He was a sheriff and they talk about like the sheriff's department out there had like anywhere from like 20 to 30 miles that they had to like monitor by themselves, which is fucking insane. That's so much. He says that he goes and he meets with Mr. Sykes and that he said that Mr. Sykes said that his horse sensed there was something wrong and then he stumbled upon the body, which I was like, that's true. Horses have really good instincts. Mm-hmm. By the way, the horse that they use in this documentary is gorgeous. I was just like, ooh, look at this beautiful horse.
Aww.
I was like, pretty. So the chief of police or the chief, he says that he sends Roger Gomez out there and that when he walked up, he knew right away that it was a human, but there was something missing. It didn't have a head and it didn't have hands. And for a minute, they didn't think it had legs.
Oh my God.
They thought it was just a torso. They found this in Ryan National Park is where it was found. And the body was just about 25 feet from the road. So like not very far at all. It was interesting because even though that there had been a level of decomposition to this body, the body was seen to be really big and thick. In fact, Sergeant Gomez kind of refers to it looking like a big pillow. And I was like, oh, this person was barrel chested, essentially. And this is something I did not know until I watched this. Mind you, right after they found the torso, they did move some stuff around and they found the legs. So the legs were attached. Because of where this is located, it's in like the mountains and there's like no moisture there, I guess, in this particular area. And it basically caused the body to mummify.
Oh, shit.
Right? So they were like, oh, but it's like also like they don't have a head or hands to like figure this out.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But they were starting to look for like puncture wounds, obviously anything that wasn't like animal scavenging, that kind of stuff, because that does happen. In fact, at one point later in this episode, Papa Joe says, once you're dumped in the woods, you're no longer mama's little boy, you're somebody's lunch. I was like, oh, Papa.
Oh my God.
He was talking about animals because they don't know. He's like squirrels, rabbits, whatever.
Right.
But I was like, oh, Papa, that's so so aggressive this time around. So they were like, okay, obviously this body has been dismembered. We need to determine what dismembered the body. And they think when they look at the laceration marks, they determine that the pattern on the hands and the neck area match and that it's most likely a saw. So Sergeant Gomez starts to try to find any piece of evidence. He actually ends up, after they move the body, he ends up throwing himself down to be like, okay, I've been thrown down, like what now? And he realizes that there's something missing. There's no blood at the scene. There's no like bone fragments from the sawing, none of that. And so they're like, okay, this is interesting. Lee Morey also goes on to describe the community in which this was found to be peaceful and that nobody locked their doors. But immediately after this body was found, doors started getting locked, which is understandable. Good old cowboy finds the human remains in his back pasture. You're going to be like, I don't trust people. Something wrong. Now we're going to go back to Colorado Springs, and detectives are figuring out who the victim was as a person. They contact his family and friends, and we meet a man by the name of Rick Kaw, and Rick is Victor's best friend. And Victor was actually his best man at their wedding. And his wife was also very close. His wife, Linda, was also very close to Victor. And she actually ends up getting the call. Because I was like, why didn't they just call him? And then I keep forgetting it's 1988 and he doesn't have a cell phone. So they called their house phone and Linda picked up. And they were like, Linda says that they called and asked, do you know a person by the name of Victor Woods? And she was like, yeah, he's our friend. And then they tell her that he is deceased. And she's like, oh my God, I can't believe this. She describes him to be extremely charismatic and that his personality just oozed out of him. Linda said she was stunned and how it felt so surreal. Again, Victor moved from Zanesville, Ohio, because he was a high-end bike repairman. And because of that, they were like, oh, he's got a good job. And they went and talked to his apartment manager. And he said that he paid on time every month. There's never been an issue. And that everyone seemed to think he was really great and that his life was going great. But there was one small thing that the apartment manager was able to say was that apparently Victor and his boss, David McCarty, had been having issues. And it was about money from business, which is never good.
Mm-mm.
And so apparently the bike shop was having money issues and they had been arguing that the business was going bad. So Papa Joe is like, I bet it's David. I bet David came up because there's no forced entry into this apartment. There's none of that. So he's thinking David came over, they got into a fight and he stabbed him and then ran. So I'm going to go to this bike shop because, so that he doesn't get caught, he has to resume normal life. I'm going to go catch him red-handed, literally, with the cut on his hand. They go in and there's an attendant at the front and they ask for David. And then David comes out. Only the problem is David has his leg in a cast from a motocross accident that he'd had weeks earlier.
Oh.
And also his cast is not bloody. So that's probably indication number one that probably did not murder Victor. They question him and David admits that they had been arguing, but he states that, David had all these ideas and he didn't want to do them. But then he started to come around. In fact, David had just secured a bunch of hotels in the area that they would rent bikes out through so that people could come and rent a bike when they were in Colorado Springs. And I'm like, that's brilliant, right? If you have some sort of I've been to hotels where they have their own bike fleet and you can just rent one. But imagine if you wanted to go, I know Colorado Springs has a bunch of trails and you wanted to go out there and bike, but you didn't want to bring a bike.
Mm-hmm.
Having your hotel be like, oh, we can help you get one is fantastic. So David was like, oh, so then they were like, oh, well, now I have to tell you that your employee Victor is actually deceased. And he got so visibly upset that he had to sit down. And so Papa Joe was weird and he was like, hey, let me help you. Give me your right hand. And so that he could look at the palm of his hand to make sure that there was no cut on it. And there wasn't. David didn't kill. In true Papa Joe fashion, it's never the first person we talk about.
No.
Never him. But he did say, he's like, oh, because they were like, well, do you know anything about him? What does he do? And he goes, actually, every single payday, he heads to this very specific bar because it's a few miles away. It's about 4 miles from his house or whatever. It's a big pool bar, if you know what I mean. It has all these pool tables in it. And so he was like, oh, yeah. And he goes, by the way, do you know what kind of car David drives? Because your boss, especially in a shop like that, they know what kind of car you drive. And he's like, oh, yeah, he drives a Toyota with a ski rack on it. And so they go off to this bar. And wouldn't you know, because this is the next day, sitting in front of the bar sitting in front of the bar is this car. And they're like, oh, so Victor was here last night. And they're like, okay. So they go in and they start talking to the bartender. And she's like, oh, yeah, I know Victor. He's great. She did mention that normally he's a really, really great guy. He's just really easy to get along with. But that night, the night in question, the night before, he actually had been drinking more than usual. And he got really loud and really annoying. And Rick, his friend, says that Victor wasn't a mean drunk. He just had zero filter. So sometimes he would just say shit and accidentally start shit. And that's kind of what happened. Apparently an altercation happened and they kicked him outside to the parking lot. And Victor was like, whatever. And there's this little fake skirmish that happens. They just yell at each other and then they go, everyone goes their own way. And then they were like, oh, okay. So then they go and literally talk to every single person who was part of the altercation. None of them have wounds on their hands. And none of them, I should say, all of them have alibis. They were all either there or they'd gone home and they had someone to verify that they weren't out murdering someone and setting fire to this house. So they're like, well, how did he get home? And then in the documentary, now that we've posed a question, we're going to go back to Pueblo because you can't just have a simple answer. So now we're back in Pueblo. And Sergeant Gomez is basically, he decides that, which is not normal protocol, by the way, because of the decomposition of this body and because of the fact that there is no head and hands, he's going to go through the autopsy process with the coroner. And he does. And he says he finds it really helpful because they realize that there's no wounds on this body. There's no puncture marks. There's no nothing. And then they have no way to find out who this victim is. And they're just like, what the fuck do we do? But about a month and a half later, because that was in March 26th. So on May 7th of 1988, in an area known as the Rye area of a park about 20 miles away from where they found the body, someone is hiking and they think that they find bones, but they're not sure. And then they come upon a human skull and they're like, okay, that's a skull. So they call it in and Sergeant Gomez goes out and he starts to investigate. And he is like, well, it's 20 miles away from the torso. And he kept saying, and this is something I give this man so much good credit for, is because a lot of people would be like, well, I found a head and I have a body, so they must go together. He was like, I am not going to say that these go together until I've run tests and have science to back me up to say that this head goes to that body. And, he says that the head was found in the ravine, but there were other things that were found in the ravine as well. That there was black leather gloves that could either be bodybuilder gloves or motorcyclist gloves. That there was a cord from a Venetian blind. There was a black kind of trash bag looking bag. There was a blood-covered rusty saw. It had a 12-inch blade and a 6-inch handle. It was like a miter saw. Think like the ones that kind of look like a butcher knife, but with like a handle. They did not discover the hands, and they were like, there's no way we're going to discover like actual hands, because this is where Papa Joe says the weird insensitive thing about like if you're dumped in the woods, because he's like, a bird could shake the finger. So they bring the head back to Pueblo County and they do the necessary tests to match the head to the torso, and they do match because the saw marks line up, because they were saying like you basically have to put like the skull and the neck together and then put the saw down it, because there should be a piece missing. So it has to be the same like teeth marks, but there should be like the saw width of it missing. They noticed that there's a big chunk to the right side of the face that's missing, and that there is a gunshot wound to the head. But now we're going to go back to Colorado Springs to Victor, because now we've discovered something in Pueblo. We have to go back to Colorado Springs. It's going to be jumpy like this the whole time. So we know where he was the night before he was killed, or before he was killed, he was at the bar. So Papa Joe goes, why don't we look at cabs? Like, this is before Uber and stuff. So it's like, it would make sense if his car was here, he may have taken a cab home. And that during this time period, cabs would generally sit at airports and at bars, because that's where they're going to get fares. So they go through and they find every cab driver that worked that night. But wouldn't you know, one of the cab drivers, a female one, noticed the altercation, which caught her attention. And then she said she saw a man that she had never seen before walk up to Victor. And she knew who Victor was because he frequented the bar. She might have not like known him as like, that's Victor, but like she knew that's that dude. Mm-hmm. She said he was wearing a beautiful leather coat, like a leather jacket, and that he had dark, long, curly hair, and then he had a cocky walk, and he was really handsome, like movie star pretty handsome. And that another weird thing about him that drew her attention was the fact that he had a suntan in the middle of the winter.
Interesting.
In Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Which I assume is cold, even if it's dry.
Yeah.
So she was like, oh, that's interesting. And she said that he and Victor talked for about a minute, and then Victor got into his car. And they were like, well, what kind of car did he have? And she's like, it was a blue Trans Am, which is a muscle car. And she described it as being very loud, which if we remember from the Olympian, that's how she described the person who ran away from his apartment with the loud muscle car. Now we're going back to Pueblo because, keep us on our toes. So they start looking for a missing persons report, and they scour through because they're like, okay, this is probably the best place to start. But with luck, a man by the name of Glenn Ferguson was coming in because his stepson had been missing for several months and he'd been trying to find him. And so he was coming in to actually file a missing persons report. I don't know why now. Maybe it was he just found out. But his name was Paul Vosicki, and he had been missing for months. And so Paul, who is he? So his sister is interviewed, and she said that he was a really nice guy and that he just kind of started running around with the wrong crowd, and that he may or may not have started running drugs about this time. Basically, what happened is that he was a bodybuilder, which would make sense because the torso they found was barrel-chested and would make sense, and that he worked out constantly, but he wasn't achieving results that he wanted to, so he started doing steroids. And then when he started doing steroids, he kind of fell into a bad crowd and he started running drugs with said bad crowd. She describes an associate of his that matches the exact description of the driver of the Trans Am that the cab driver sees. that he is like handsome. He has his car. So now 2 departments are looking for the same guy. And Papa Joe says serial killers don't need a motive. It's rare if they do, and it's more dangerous if they do. Then we meet a retired sergeant from the Pueblo Police Department by the name of Rich Lipmitch. He gets a call at 3:30 in the morning. And basically the chief of police sends him down to a Hampton Inn where a night manager / front desk clerk and a security guard have gotten shot. And so he gets there and he starts doing the crime scene photos and the sketches because he's trying to lay it out correctly. The night clerk / manager was named Raymond Garcia, and he was shot and pronounced dead at the scene. He was like in a back room. Lori Garcia, which is his sister, was interviewed, and she said that her dad called to tell her and she just couldn't believe it because her dad was like, he's been shot. And she's like, well, is he okay? And she's like, no, he didn't make it. It was this whole it's very sad. Like nobody wants to get that phone call. And then his cousin George says that he just couldn't believe it. He kept saying this isn't fair. It's just not right. And that basically Lori describes Ray as her protector. He was her older brother of 3 years older. And the other thing that she lets us know is that Ray wasn't actually supposed to be working that night. He actually had switched his night with someone because it was his coworker's birthday and he wanted her to be able to celebrate with her friends. So he switched like days with her. And so basically Ray was literally at the wrong place at the wrong time. Ray was also described as someone who would always help people no matter what they asked. He just did it. And so no one knew why he needed to kill Ray. Like it seemed like he cooperated and gave him the money and everything like that. So it just seemed really senseless. Now the security guard by the name of Robert Martinez, he actually got shot in kind of in the jaw and it grazed his skull, if that makes any sense. Basically, they were like, this killer must have wanted to get in and out and not have a witness to be able to describe what he looked like for the robbery. But he only got $500. Now, since we know this bit of information, if you playing at home and guessed, we're going back to Colorado Springs. Papa Joe starts talking about something called the Rocky Mountain Information Network, which was created in the 1970s that basically shares incident-based reporting systems so that other departments along this central mountain range area could share case information. I'm like, that's brilliant. The fact that they started in the 70s is so far advanced from other people. So Papa Joe says he reads them religiously. It's the one thing he always reads is he makes sure he reads this because he wants to kind of pick up some incident reports. So while they're doing that, they realize that this unsub can be described by the security guard. So Martinez, since he was grazed and he could talk, he says he walks in and sees the robbery happening. Now, I don't know why Papa Joe is telling us this part of the story, but he does, because it definitely happened in a different jurisdiction. But I think he's just telling us the incident report he read. It's that Martinez was grazed, that he walks in and he sees the robbery happening, that the bad guy, the unsub, points the gun at him and says, I know you're carrying a gun, don't you dare go for it. And he orders him to put it on the floor and slide it to him, which Martinez does and complies because that's what they teach you to do in these type of situations, is to comply. He says that he's ordered down on his knees, and then all of a sudden the bad guy just looks at him and goes, I think I'm going to kill you, and then shoots him, and it grazes him, but he falls to the floor and he's semi-conscious, but the shooter doesn't go to check to make sure he's dead. He just assumes he's dead. He says then he hears him go and get the money from Raymond, and then he says he shoots them, and then he gets into his car and drives off, and it's a very loud muscle car. And, this car keeps popping up, which catches Papa Joe's attention. Oh my God, this car. So now that they have this information, they're like, oh my God, who is this dude? Well, wouldn't you know, someone was really upset and decided to come forward as a witness. A woman comes in and says she knows who robbed and killed the people at the Hampton Inn because it's her boyfriend, and his name is Ronald Lee White. She says that she knows all about the hotel robbing and that she did enough and she was pissed. Basically, this is hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. She was pissed at him and she was like, I'm going to turn you in, bitch. Thank you for turning him in.
For sure.
Should have done it when you found out, but
Right. I guess better late than never, but come on.
Right. So we know that our bad guy is Robert Lee White, and they know where he is because she's kicked him out and he's staying somewhere. So Colorado Springs PD and Pueblo PD are talking to each other, and they are okay, we got this. What we're going to do is they stake outside of his house and they're going to go and take him. They don't know how it's going to happen. But luckily for them, Ronald decides to come outside to take the trash out. And so they surround him I'm so great that the police let him put the trash in the can. That was nice of him. And they were like, you're under arrest. And he does not even resist. He takes 2 steps back, puts his hand behind his back, and that's it. And they take him in. And I'm like, that doesn't ever happen. According to Papa Joe, Ronald has a very long rap sheet. Things from rape to robbery to so many. He's done 2 stints in prison. And one time when he was in prison, one of his cellmate made a comment to him that he did not like, and he took a sledgehammer to him and beat him with an inch of his life. It took 6 guards to get Ronald off of this dude.
Oh my God.
I'm like, how is he out?
Literally, what the fuck?
He tried to commit murder in prison.
Right?
That's very easy to capture him. He's in the prison. Another incident when he was not in prison, he was basically like driving around and he saw that this police officer was trying to like arrest someone and that the suspect had basically gotten the advantage on the police officer. So he gets out like he's going to help, like a good Samaritan. Some people do this. My dad did this once. It was really very scary, actually. He gets out to go help this police officer and he just walks up to the suspect and shoots him in the head.
Oh my God.
I was like, how is he not in prison for murder for that?
Like, what?
But I guess like they don't really describe like how bad it was. Like, I don't know if he was like killing the police officer and so he thought this was his only like option.
Still.
Right? I'm like, I don't know. I don't understand this. So when they brought him in, they were like, we're going to isolate him. And so basically they didn't want any of the other people in the cells to see him. So they were like lined down this. And he said that Sergeant Roger Gomez says that he was like scowling at everyone and his eyes just looked like they were of the devil and just void of life and everything. Earlier, we meet a chief by the name of Dan Corsentino. And he said that when they interviewed him about the robbery, he just started singing like a bird. Like he just said he had gone and bought the gun that he used in Denver and put it in his glove box for a rainy day. That's how you describe buying a gun, is that you're saving it for a rainy day. This is not a savings account, sir.
No.
Ronald tells Detective Gomez or Sergeant Gomez that the reason he shot the security guard, Robert Martinez, is because he was insulted. He didn't try to pull his gun and do his job. And he was like, you should have tried to do your job. Like literally he complied with you, which is what he's told to do because he's a security guard, not a police officer. And that's why he shot him, was because he was mad that he didn't try to shoot him. The screws are not all up there. I'm just saying. So they're like, okay, well, Papa Joe, we got him for this thing. You're going to help us with the body they found of Paul and this other one. They're like, yeah. So he's like, we're going to transfer him to Colorado Springs. And so he gets transferred and they basically tell him, listen, if you treat him right, he will sing like a canary. Just make sure he's happy and he will tell you everything. If he's pissed at you, he's going to shut the fuck up. He's definitely one of those serial killers that like to gloat. And this is probably the worst one. Papa Joe says this was like the weirdest, but like it was kind of a remarkable like experience because he was like, I've never sat with someone because he's done so many cases at this point. He's had 15 years in homicide or with the PD, and he's sitting there thinking like, this guy should be nervous. He should be alert. He should be jumpy. This fucker was asleep when he walked in the room, head on the table, sleeping on his arm like a baby. Like it wasn't like he was in an interrogation room, like handcuffed to a table. I would have been like almost peeing my pants with nervousness the whole time.
Literally.
So Papa Joe asks him like, what's he want to be called? And he goes, Ronald, Ronnie. And he goes, yeah, you can call me Ronnie. And he goes, well, you can call me Joe. And he notices that Ronnie kind of starts looking at this sign that says no smoking. And he realizes that he probably wants to smoke. So he says, hey, Ronnie, do you smoke? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, do you want a cigarette? And he goes, yeah. So he gets up and he puts a cigarette on Ronnie's mouth, like just, like puts it there. And then Papa Joe does smoke and he smokes throughout the episode, like the younger guy of him, lights a cigarette and he goes, oh, do you need a light? Haha. And then he chucks the lighter at him. And what do you do when someone throws something at you? You catch it with your dominant hand, which is what you would use to murder someone, is your dominant hand. And wouldn't you know, right across his palm is a huge slash mark.
Oh my goodness, who would have guessed?
Who would have guessed that Papa Joe not only building rapport, but also getting evidence?
And technically a DNA sample because he's got that cigarette in his mouth.
Oh, this is very true. So they're like, oh my goodness, he has the scar. Papa Joe just fucking balls to the wall gall right here, right? Like so crazy. He looks at the scar and he goes, I bet you got that when you stabbed Victor. And Ronnie goes, yeah, and it fucking hurt too.
Oh.
No remorse, just straight out. And Papa Joe's like, I bet it did. So Papa Joe's like, tell me what happened. And so he says that basically he meets him in the parking lot and just decides to give him a ride home. And they get there and Victor does something that pisses him off. He doesn't say what it is, just whatever. And he kills him and gets hurt. And then he tries to cover it up by burning it. And Papa Joe asks him, like, what about all the other people in the building? Like, it's an apartment building. And he goes, fuck them. I had to cover up my evidence. Like, this person is so fucking cold and callous.
God, he's so evil.
So then they're like, well, okay, now I have to talk to you about Paul's murder. And he's like, Paul's sister tells the police that this is his bestie and that they sell drugs together. And that literally they do 2 or 3 runs a night where they go from Pueblo to Colorado Springs to Denver and then back to Pueblo. And they do that. I was like, that's a lot. So they're like, why did you kill Paul? And he goes, well, I thought Paul stole $1,500 from me. And mind you, he killed someone over between $200 and $500 at the fucking Hampton Inn. And he goes, Ronnie says that he basically lured Paul out to a remote area and that he put him on his knees and for an hour was just like verbally abusing the dude. And I think he was trying to scare him, you know, like that's what I think he was trying to do. And then he goes and gets a book out of his car, puts the book up, and then shoots Ronnie shoots Paul through the book because, quote, I don't want to get blood splatter. And that would help me stay clean. He literally, like when he committed the crime, at one point he was wearing like a Christian Dior shirt, I think in Victor's murder, because he's a drug dealer. Like he's got money. He's wearing a nice shirt. I was like, okay, sir. And so apparently Ronnie then drug the body out into the field that was next to it. And he said he got mad because when he was using the saw on the neck, it got stuck and that made him upset. But it also, when he went to cut off the hands, it said they came off like butter. This man is fucking crazy.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Don't worry, it gets crazier.
Oh, great.
Then he says he just like grabbed the head by the hair and walked it to his car because it was easier than carrying the whole body.
Oh my God.
And he put them in the plastic bag and then he drove 20 miles away and then thought, oh, this is a great place and threw it out. Didn't even get out of the car, threw it out of his window.
Oh my God.
And then was like, if someone finds it, someone finds it. It's not going to link me to anything. So he thought.
Bro.
Mm-hmm. So then they were like, holy shit, this is fucking crazy. And Ronnie goes, you know, I'm really tired. I'm done talking. And they're like, okay. So they go to like take him back to his cell. And as he goes to leave, he turns to Papa Joe and he goes, you know, I don't actually remember how many people I've actually killed.
What a statement to say, but I'm not surprised.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Right? I know exactly how many people I've murdered. 0.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. That's a number that should probably stick with you. He tells him he thinks it's about 15 or 16. Papa Joe and other law enforcement are pretty sure it's about 15 people he's killed, but they just don't know. Ronald White pleads guilty to all 3 murders and 1 attempted murder. In court, he addresses everyone in the room and says, I'll kill you all, son of a bitches, and I'll kill your kids too.
Oh my God.
Papa Joe's like, I was in the courtroom. It was very awkward. One of the things that a DA says is that he's looking for attention and to hurt the survivors, because this is another way to hurt more people. Survivors come and make impact statements. And this was his way of hurting them. According to Lori Garcia, Ray's sister, she says he just didn't seem to care. He was like smirking, like when he's looking around the court, and he just seemed to really be enjoying himself.
Of course he was.
So the judge gets up and gives his sentencing, and he says that he gives him life in prison. And Ronald says, I don't want life in prison, you dumb son of a bitch. I want you to kill me. And that he was just done. So the judge was like, fuck you and your request. You're getting life in prison. And Ronald White is still in prison to this day.
Haha, bitch.
Mm-hmm. I know I tried to look up and see if he like passed away or whatnot, but like it was somebody else. It was definitely not him, because it was like someone who had like a wife and kids and like a job. And I was like, oh, no, not the same person.
Gotcha. What an evil piece of shit.
What an evil man. And he obviously traveled and did this, so they don't know. And it just seemed like he had, it was funny because Papa goes, they said he had anger issues. It's like, yeah, he had anger issues. Like, come on. This is a different kind of Homicide Hunter. It's basically like a longer version of one we had done, because we had just done Victor Wood's part, and even that wasn't a lot of detail. So definitely check it out if you want to go listen to just that part. You should go back and listen. Tara's gonna put it in the show notes. I was blown away by this. Good God.
He is where he belongs.
He is. I don't really feel like solitary confinement is good for people, but I kind of feel like this dude needs to be like in that. You remember when we did the Yuma prison like a million years ago? And like they had that one place where they would put all the people that was just like the completely dark room.
He needs to go there.
I feel like he needs to go there. And just him on the inside.
Yep.
Super glad that he got caught because, you know, if he hadn't, he would have probably done this for a lot longer. And it was interesting that he killed a friend.
Oh, I know. He just didn't care about anyone.
He was probably really psychotic.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be like today, if he had a good defense attorney, would have probably tried to get him off with insanity.
Thankfully, he did not.
He did not. Well, with that, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time here on Three Spook Girls. Toodles.
Bye.